Guys, welcome back to the show. Today in the studio, Alex, founding member of SwissBorg. How are you doing, brother?
Good to see you, brother. Good energies as always.
Yeah, likewise. Hopefully you enjoyed the cup of coffee.
Oh, the coffee's amazing, man.
Nice.
Guys, this is absolutely crazy coffee. It reminds me of a fine wine.
Yeah, that's the idea, right? The idea is to have something which is a little bit more sophisticated than like a normal, quote, black coffee.
Magnificento. I don't know if that's Italian or not.
Kind of. It's not that far off.
Perfecto, maybe.
Back from Singapore, right?
Yeah, wow, intense. Super intense. Still alive, which is great. We're both still alive.
Exactly. I had so little sleep because there were so many events. And by the way, yours was one of my favorite, by the way. So many good people, so many good discussions going on. The venue was fantastic. I mean, the view was insane. The only problem, I think, in Singapore is like, I don't know why they do everything when the F1 it goes on and then roads are blocked. You can't go anywhere. That's something I would potentially change, but also I understand that people want to go and see the F1.
Yeah, right? Absolutely. As you said, right, for me, Singapore is such a beautiful city. By the way, I think it's the city with the most green I've seen in my entire life, right? Yeah. Because apparently the first prime minister of Singapore, he wanted to make this a garden city. Oh, so they planted trees, bushes, forests. And I don't know if you've been to Garden by the Bay, but it's absolutely gorgeous, right? Those big mushrooms with tons of green around them. But on the flip side, I say one of the downsides, as you said, is it's such a complicated city. Like for half a mile, I had to go through 2 undergrounds and 1 overground. So we're not even talking like the ground floor. Yeah. It's super complicated, especially during F1.
Yeah, it is. And roads are closed. And sometimes you have to go maybe like to an event and then you have maybe 10, 15, 20 minutes stop in between events. And it's like, how am I getting over there? Super humid, which, well, we should be used to it. But to me, actually, Dubai is much easier. It's less humid. I don't know. I feel maybe because I'm used to it. And also in Dubai, to be honest, we don't run around. You have your car and... So, but your experience is always fantastic. The Token 2049 was great. It's great to see you and all the other guys.
Likewise, bye.
Once a year we get together.
It set the upper hand, absolutely. And they tagged along with Breakpoint, right? Solana.
Yeah.
So it felt like a big tech conference, like Web Summit, combined with an Apple convention. Because I see really Solana as the Apple version of Web3. So that combined together plus F1. Right?
Mind-blowing, right? Exactly. So I would like to know, what was your journey into crypto? I mean, how have you started?
Listen, I came in for the profit and I stayed for the purpose. Like a lot of people, I got to be completely naked and honest when I say that. And it was my brother who got me into it. So he's the CEO of SwissBorg. And he just called me one day. I was in Tokyo at the time. Okay. And I was about to take the train. So I didn't take the train just to take his call because he was really insisting. And when I picked up the phone, he was like, Alex, I gotta tell you about something. There's something called smart contract, and smart contract's gonna create a token economy, and everything's gonna be on chain, blah, 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 blah. And literally, like, my brain was like flipping in every single direction. I'm like, he's gone completely nuts, and I didn't understand a single word. Yeah. And he ended up sending me some Ethereum. He got me to set up my own wallet, which I think is one of the best ways to get people into crypto. Roger Ver did that when I was in Japan, when he was labeled as Bitcoin Jesus. And that really caught me by surprise because, when you send something to someone and then you start following the charts and you see the price going up, you're like wondering, what the heck's going on, man? Like, this is weird. And then you end up really looking into it as you make money. And now I'm here for the purpose. I love the community. I think we have one of the best communities in the world. And I think we're changing the way corporations work.
I've done the same thing. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to paint anything else. I invested in Bitcoin because I wanted to make money, right? Yeah, so that was my, quote, way out from the rat race. So I think it makes sense. I think most people are going to most likely come in by the top and probably panic sell the bottom, or if not, something along those lines, right? But then, like you said, if you manage to survive a couple of cycles, well, then you're just going to stay for the purpose, right? Because you can see, and I agree with you, by the way, put your hands into it is the best way, because then you are also invested with time, with money. So it makes sense. You can start using it and you see how it works. And how do you feel about the market? Because, I mean, I want to talk about SwissBorg because you guys have built something incredible. But before we dive into your specific product and what you achieved so far, which is remarkable, how do you feel about the market at the moment? Because we are around 65,000, more or less, but it's a huge amount of fear. Retail doesn't even seem to be nearly remotely interested. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, so this market, I feel, is quite different from the previous DeFi bubble that we had from 2019 to 2022, roughly, right? And then we had such a succession of black swans, like catastrophic events, right, where we lost so much money from our own communities. So it's behaving slightly different. As you know, What happens in the world is we have a concept of risk on, risk off assets or markets, right? And what does risk off mean? It means that you become a little more conservative. You put your money into gold, you put your money into cash, maybe into collectibles. In Dubai, people love the limited edition watches, limited edition cars, whatever you think is safer than having, or real estate. And then risk on is when you take more risk, right? And obviously crypto assets as a whole is seen as a risk on market. But I think, Maurizio, what happened is we hurt ourselves so much with all these black swans. The billions of dollars we lost through USD, the billions of dollars that we've lost through DeFi hacks, the money we lost through Celsius, FTX, 3 Arrows Capital, all that combined really changed the current market, where usually what happens is for the people who are the more conservative and less risk-taking, they start with Bitcoin, and as the market opens up, you go down in risk, right? You go all the way to the micro caps and crazy bets, right? And then what's really important is once you go from Bitcoin all the way down to the large cap, medium, small cap, micro cap, then you have to swim back up by the end, right? But now it's completely distorted, right? We have Bitcoin and then we have meme coins, right?
Yes, so to say meme to Bitcoin now.
So people are, but I understand the feelings because, you know, like people lost so much money, they want to make that money back. They're also seeing that the VCs and exchanges are playing past the potato with each other. The community is not getting access to this. So that they're thinking, sorry for my French, I'm going to take risk and invest in something that just has a story, no intrinsic value whatsoever, and hope that I can make money.
It was, I don't remember who has done it, but there was a content creator who's gone around and he was showing to random people in the streets a bunch of images and say, oh, this is a DeFi project. They want to decentralize finance. This is a cat. Which one would you buy? The cat with a hat, whatever it was. And if you think about it, it's just nuts. Because from a retail perspective, the odds of you picking a meme coin, which is going to make you money, is higher than the lottery ticket. So it does make sense. When you put all these things together, it just makes sense. But I'm wondering, where are those people that they contributed so far? Like you said, there is a seasonality. It's like a fountain. You know, it comes from, you know, Bitcoin goes up, and then boom, Ethereum, big caps, small caps, and goes down like this. But now, it's like we are in some weird parallel universe where people are going meme coin, Bitcoin, meme coin, and there is nothing in between. Absolutely. So are you expecting a wave of new users coming in? What do you see here?
Yeah, so the new, as you said, the new users and that particular wave has not come in yet. And you can check that from every single report out there, whether it's Coinbase, whether it's SwissBorg, you know, whether it's Binance. Obviously, there has been an onboarding of new users, specifically through meme coins, because maybe that captured a few new users, right? But essentially, the issue that we're having now is it's the same liquidity. It's the same people that are walking on one leg because they lost a leg in the previous war, right? Yeah. In 2022. So there's really a lack of liquidity. And I think really to understand markets, Maurizio, like a lot of people make some very complicated, overly complicated, positively, negatively correlated to this market, S&P 500, NASDAQ. All that is bull. I think the markets, the way they react, it's a 2-point phenomenon. Number one is, do you have the money? And that purely is based on demographics and just consumer price index. Do I have money to invest? And because we lost so much money from the previous cycle, we're hurt, right? And there's no new wave. So how do you drive a new cycle like that? So do we have money is the number one. So that's the liquidity. And our current liquidity within our community is kind of hurt. But that liquidity can increase with a new wave of users, right? So, and the second part is, do I have the risk appetite? So the risk appetite, essentially when you see the global macro picture, plus you also see interest rates, right? As interest rates go down, as quantitative easing resumes and all that kind of stuff, then you realize, number one, do we have the liquidity? Number two, do we have the risk appetite? Because that means, can I invest and will I invest? And if you have both together, then boom, that's the next bull cycle. And I think that will resume what we're seeing right now, the typical cycle where you go from Bitcoin to the majors to the altcoin cycle.
I mean, for the first time ever in the cycle, we've gone through the all-time high before the halving. That never happened before. And it's been like 6 months of absolute boredom. And this is where people are going to leave the market. If the market moves, I think either way up and or down, people are engaged. They can trade, news can talk about it. But if Bitcoin goes for 6 months at $60,000, people are bored the hell out of it. And it's becoming harder to make content. I mean, we run a live show Monday to Friday, and I'm like, what the hell am I going to talk about today? Like, nothing literally happened. The prices is exactly the same as it was 3 months ago. And Benjamin Cowan posted, shout out to Benjamin, he posted a stat on subscribers and people they watch.
I've seen that. Yeah,
really bad, which means there is no new people, like you said. So,
and even Google the keywords, right? If you look at keywords, it hasn't changed, right?
So I wonder, I mean, do you think we need to see like Bitcoin at 100,000 before a new wave of people are going to go, oh my God, we're going to FOMO into this? What's your take?
Absolutely. So I think it's a combination of factors. I think Bitcoin is definitely one good source because once it hits $100,000, this is 6 digits, right? It's pretty big. That will be on the news everywhere, and that could create, the secondary wave. Although I must say that because of all the bad actors we've had since 2022, our branding is not so sexy these days. So we have to really bring some new bubbles. And what I see in terms of bubbles is, I'm going to say something very controversial.
Go for it.
Iggy, right? The mother token.
Yeah.
So I was at her party.
She retweeted your tweet, by the way.
Yeah, which went viral. Thank you so much, Iggy. We got 300,000 views on that. So she's amazing. So I was extremely skeptical. You saw that post, right?
Yeah.
Extremely skeptical. I'm a fundamentalist. I like to look at on-chain data. I like to look at the number of users, real active users and not total users, because that's such a vanity metric. If you have a company that has, let's say, 1 million users, but only 1% are active, that's a very weak company. So if you have 10% of all your users active on a monthly basis, MAU, and let's say 5 to 7% DAU, daily active users, then that's a solid company because it's sticky and you have real fans, right? So I really like to look at numbers when I choose tokens, and I want to see the numbers growing. And if I see the numbers growing, so for example, I bought some Sui just about 4 or 5 months back because I saw numbers on chain going up while other chains were actually losing traction. And guess what happened? It pumped, right? It pumped like, I think 57% since that. So I'm a fundamentalist. So can you imagine trying to accept meme coins? It was really hard, Maurizio.
I wanted to ask you about that actually, but yeah, I'm glad we're talking about it. Yeah.
But I realized one thing, and I understand why everyone out there, because when I posted that or that X content with Iggy, dude, I got so many haters going after me.
I bet, yeah.
They got really upset. And I understand the feeling because up until now, all the celeb/meme coins or pop culture coins have been scams, right? They've been scams. So when you have PTSD and you got screwed over by some celebrity who's promoting a coin and then they lose all their money, it's obvious that people are very reluctant, very skeptical. But my brother, who, to be honest, he's the visionary of SwissBorg, he's the eyes of SwissBorg, so he sees things. We were the second exchange in the world to list Mother Token, and I voted against.
Didn't know that.
I voted against in the meeting, in the actual meeting that occurred. And my brother said, this is a meme coin that could go up to $1 billion market cap. That's what he said. And he said that publicly. I messaged him right away on WhatsApp. I'm like, Sai, brother, I love you, man, but please don't post this kind of stuff. Do you imagine the risk that you're taking? And he said, listen, Alex, I have very strong belief in Iggy. And I'm like, why? And she said, because she's a badass. She's a female hip hop artist. She succeeded in a world that's completely that's completely political, that has really dodgy and sleazy sides to it as a woman. So he said, if she can survive the hip hop world,
piece of cake,
crypto, she'll take it. She'll take it on the chin, right? She's not going to get beat up, and she will truly be able to deliver. So I was kind of on the fence, right? Because I love my brother and I respect him, and we really have a very tight relationship. And I thought, okay, I'll give a benefit of the doubt. So I've been looking, following, and I'm like, dude, this girl is hustling 6-7 times a day on her token, right? Then when I saw her in real life, I saw the way she behaved with the community.
Singapore
I was already, I was already 70% sold after really looking into what she was doing, adding utility, et cetera, et cetera. And then I saw her in real life, and I saw she was there from the opening of the party till the last minute of the party. And I can tell you because I was drunk and I was still there. And it was a super fun party, by the way.
Yeah, I missed it. Damn
it. You should come next time for sure. I heard there may be others. But respect, hats off to Iggy and I really hope she pulls this off, Maurizio, because if she does, she's setting a new trend. She's literally a trailblazer for all future celebrities. And that could be a bubble. That could be the next bubble where people just FOMO into the on-chain, can help us push the markets. So we need a bubble, a celeb/pop culture type coin trend. I think that could be a really good trend because the celebrities will bring on serious celebrities.
Yep.
Will bring on some people on chain. And then the other bubble, I think the DeFi bubble will resume along with AI bubbles and other bubbles. But we need to get these bubbles starting to grow, and that will bring the next altcoin cycle, in my humble opinion.
I'm 100% with you, and here's why. Like, imagine like having a token for your fan base is so powerful. You know, you do a concert, you can sell tickets through a token, you can give meet and greets, you can take photos. Utilities are endless. So, like you said, I agree. I think we need some of those celeb. They power through, not just for the money, but they stay for the utility. They basically work with their fan and the audience to build something real. And then other people are going to say, whoa, wait a second. I can make money and at the same time give something to my community. Well, it's a no-brainer. Because when it comes to music and films and all these things, it's really savage. Like, they have a small cut on everything because there are so many middle men in between.
It could change the game. You're absolutely right. You know, and I think it's absolutely revolutionizing the world of finance in general, because up until now, as you know, Maurizio, you would invest in companies. You would not invest directly in an individual.
Yep.
That never existed, right? And I'm not talking about sponsorship. You know, I was one of the first guys, and sorry, I'm going to boast just a little moment here. In 2019, to say that I want to see social investing. I want it to be where I can invest in Maurizio. If you're just starting this amazing MR.M Podcast, and I think the setup is so cool, which it is, bravo, by the way.
Thank you.
Plus, I know that you're a creative director, and I know that you're going to get sponsorships. I want to be able to invest directly in your own coin because I believe in your future. And back in the days, I was always giving the example of Justin Bieber because, by the way, I used to hate Justin Bieber. Now I have huge respect, and God bless his soul with all the shit that's happening with that Hollywood movement. I must say, imagine you see this kid right on YouTube, random kid from Vancouver with an acoustic guitar, you know, on a sidewalk, you know, good-looking kid, cool hairstyle, and a beautiful voice. And the kid is essentially saying, listen, I need money to start my career, right? Rather than relying on all these intermediate parties that, by the way, will drain his soul, will drain his money, you know, and all those kind of like dodgy practices due to greed. You know, why couldn't I buy like a Justin Bieber coin? Like say, okay, hey guys, I'm creating the Belieber coin. He goes on pump.fun or whatever. Just one click, he launches coins. And then because the beauty about that is it could be like a donation, right? Where you can just say, okay, I'm donating for a kid that, you know, who has a great purpose, has a dream. But it may bring back money, right? So it's even better than a donation. You know what I mean? So I feel like it's truly revolutionary, right?
With the blockchain, we can chop the middleman. It can go from exactly like you said, it goes from the fan or the investor to the person which is creating the thing. So, and then it's up to them to say, okay, I raised $5 million. I'm going to use those money to do those things. And then when people are going to purchase the token or whatever it is that they want to help with, they will feel more attached to, which means they'll more likely have a different impact on their music, on the events. They'll go because they are invested, right? Instead of supposed to buying a record or buying some sort of a merchandise, which it doesn't go to the person anyway. They only get a commission.
You said something really important that I think everyone really needs to understand. When you said that everything needs to be connected, you know, and some sort of intertwined in some ways. That is so important, Maurizio, what you said in that specific sentence, because I think in Web3, everyone wants to take over the world, but people are not using each other's technology. I mean, open source is only being used to like fork or literally create the same tech and do a slight adjustment because, you know, people are lazy and then they'll try to brand it in a way where nobody truly knows that it's just a fork, right? There's absolutely no proprietary tech, nothing built by themselves. But what you said about connecting everything like Legos or building blocks is so important, Maurizio, because imagine this, right? I used to be a coach for startups, you know, back in 2007 to 2012. I don't know if you remember, that's when we had the beginning of Techstars, 500 startups, Google startups. It was when you literally had a white paper and you could raise $500,000 with a single page printed from your computer. It was a really cool bubble, right? Everyone was like pitching their new, what's the next big thing? And I can say something that I remember very clearly from those days was the big VCs would always say, I want to invest in the next big thing. And how they would quantify that is they would say, I'm looking for the 10X. But it doesn't mean 10X in ROI. They said, I'm looking for something that's 10 times better than what already exists or 10 times cheaper than what already exists, some sort of 10x factor, because that will get us to change our habits and try a new product. Because if you have just like something that's 2x better, you may change your habit, but we're human, we're creatures of habit, right? So it's very hard to break those and replace those. So as you said, if in crypto everything is interconnected, let's say you're using decentralized DePIN, so the data layer, you're collaborating with one of the projects like Aether or someone who's running a data layer. You also have Chainlink and other projects for your data layer. Then you're using a truly decentralized infrastructure, truly decentralized consumer dApp. You know what I mean? Truly decentralized governance model. And if you interconnect on top of building your technology from, let's literally talk about the layer 0 all the way to the consumer dApp or layer 3, then all of a sudden you're competing against Web 2, right? So if you want to go against Elon Musk with X, it's really difficult to go against X, right? Because he has so many things. But imagine you had something that's fully decentralized that cannot be censored like Elon Musk's X in Brazil. Mm-hmm. Plus you have the ability to create your own token, your own celeb coin within a click, so like a la pump.fun. Plus you have a back-end trading where you can swap those coins as well as an exchange, and all these layers, then you're creating something that actually has a very interesting use case that X does not have, right? Once again, in Web3, we're always trying to beat each other. We're critical with each other. We're very toxic as well.
There's no tribalism. Sorry to jump in.
Tribalism. Oh, yeah, exactly.
I really
but
don't like it.
But if we worked better with each other, we would take on Web2 much faster.
I think there's going to be a point, hopefully, where everything's going to go in one place and people are going to start working together as opposed to against each other. And I don't think it's healthy, but it's part of the, I guess, of the next step, right?
And the user doesn't need to know this. The user just needs to know that everything is built on a trustless network. That's it, right?
It's going to become, I guess, easier and easier. We have El Salvador, we have election happening in November in the US where the two candidates are fighting over user base, discussing crypto. So definitely a few interesting years we have ahead, right?
Yeah, super interesting. And I think about the evolution of mankind. The first biggest evolution that I think that helped propel society was the printing press, right? The ability to print. And why was that so important is because all the religious people back in the day, they didn't have to go always to their local church in order to have access to a Bible, right? Or to pray or do everything. You could have your Bible at home, right? So the printing press, and when you think about it, like this entire evolution, what has it done for us human beings? Is it empowers us on two components, control and ownership, right? Which you see how it's connected to Bitcoin, right? And so the printing press was a massive, massive technological advancement to help us propel forward. Fast forward to the internet. That was a massive, massive technological advancement. And once again, why? Because it allows us to be mobile, accessibility, but really when you boil down to the key components is control, empowering us through control and ownership. So we can control a phone, music, etc. We're almost like cyborgs, right? Like with our phones. And now the next level is, once again, control ownership is Web3. And that truly is the future because now, as Andreas Antonopoulos said once at a meetup when I was in London, he said, Bitcoin is going to make banks look like dinosaurs, prehistoric. And the banks will end up becoming museums, is what he said. And he's absolutely right, because now we're getting, once again, control and ownership of our financial assets. So everything, I think, across time, when you look at the major milestones, how has it propelled us forward as civilization? It's essentially those two components, I think, right?
I spoken to Lynn Alden last night, and she said, she always says, nothing stops this train. I was waiting for that moment in the podcast. I was like, come on, say it. But it came out organic. I was like, yes. I think you can see in my face, I was celebrating. But no, I completely agree. And speaking of which, I would like to ask you, because you guys have built something incredible. I mean, SwissBorg is amazing. How have you gone from that phone call with your brother in Tokyo, not taking the train, kind of a sliding door moment? I don't know if you remember the movie. What happened then? And you guys have gone, let's build something. I mean, it's not something you can do easily. Like, you guys have built something extremely complex.
Yeah, it's a very complicated process, and it's painful. I must say my soul has aged tremendously. But, I really think everything comes down to the two co-founders. You can look at whatever you want, technology, you can look at white papers, you can look at, if you really want to invest in a company, you have to look at the two co-founders and its growth. That's all you need. When I really think about due diligence, and if I had to bet on a particular horse or horses, I would look at how the co-founders blend with each other, not just on a personality level, but also on a skill set level. And Anthony and Cyrus are so different. Like Anthony, as I was saying earlier, my brother is more like the eyes, the visionary. He's a guru, extremely charismatic. He really has energy. And then you have Anthony, who's the engineer by Academics Polytechnique, which, as you know, is one of the greatest engineering schools in the world. Yeah. Extremely detail-oriented, very into process, procedures, a mathematician. So the complementary, how complementary they were with each other really, really, stuck to me. And then there's the culture, right? Like, what is the culture? Can you make sure that the entire company behaves a certain way that benefits progression, that benefits motivation, that benefits productivity, efficiency, effectiveness. And that is very difficult to build in a company because you sometimes early on, you have to cut people very quickly before toxicity, propels one bad apple that rots all the others. So there are many, many things, I think. But once you have the two really strong co-founders, that they'll be able to navigate the boat. That if there's a really big wave coming, they'll pivot the boat in a slightly different direction to adapt to the sea and the ocean of unexpectations that we have. So
yeah, I like that. I remember growing and building design teams, right? And I remember having maybe a new hire. It doesn't matter the position. She or he could be a senior, a mid, a junior. It doesn't matter. You take this individual and you plug it into an existing ecosystem of 20 or 40 or even 50 people, it changes the whole dynamic completely. So that's for sure. And I agree with you. I think you always invest in people. And if I had to choose in between a good guy with a bad idea and a bad guy with a good idea, I would go with the first. Because a good guy with a bad idea can change the idea, but if you are a bad guy,
100%.
You can't become a good guy overnight. So I agree. And I think this is one of the Shark Tank moment when I think it was Kevin O'Leary was saying, I always pick the entrepreneur I like the most. The idea is secondary, because also having a good idea is one thing, but executing the idea is everything.
100%.
Right? So, and what do you think are the challenges now? Like, you guys have built a monster in the space, right? Like, what challenges are you guys facing now building in the blockchain?
Yeah, so for those who do not know SwissBorg, please try the app out. It's a pretty cool app, pretty easy to use. By the way, our median age is around 47, 48 years young. Nice. Okay. That shows how easy it is. We have people earning DeFi interest and yields at the age of 83 to 85. So that's how user-friendly it is. But, the original vision of SwissBorg was, and this is something that most people don't get, by the way. They only look at commissions, right? Like the fees when you trade. But one thing that we really need to understand is what affects you even more than fees is spread and slippage, which can go from 2-3%, depending on the liquidity of that order book, to double digit, right? So you can get wrecked with spread and slippage. So what we did is we created an aggregator. So we aggregate through all the SEXs, centralized exchanges like Binance, Kraken. But recently, what we managed to do, and we're the only one in the world to own this technology, is we can go from FX to SEX to DEX.
Oh, wow.
And we have 16 fiat currencies and 11 exchanges. And so what it will do is in one click, it will get you the best price in real time. And more importantly, Maurizio, and this connects to what's next, to stay relevant, because this space moves so fast, right? How do you stay relevant and not die overnight? I think the future of crypto is this, right? Like, you're going to go from a front end that is regulated and licensed, and everything's going to execute on chain, where it's transparent, where it's visible, where you can't cheat people, etc. And so us being able to go from euros or Swiss francs and then execute on Solana like Jupiter, right, directly in one tap, that's the future. And I think for us at SwissBorg, we understand that now we've integrated most of the liquidity on Solana. Then you have to start moving to different chains. And then once you can do that, then what we say, we like to call our slogan, better than sex, CEX. Yeah. So it's no longer, you don't have the trouble and the struggle of UX of DEXs. You have really good UX, but it's all done on chain eventually.
Yeah, I love that. And there's going to be a point where I strongly believe banks are going to start bending the knee on stablecoin. But imagine like a click and you have your USDT balance and you can swap in between Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, whatever you want. It's a game changer, right? So also you have Solana coming out with phones, right? So one way or another, I think you adapt or you die.
Or you die, exactly. We're actually listing a Swiss franc stablecoin called VCHF on Solana. And by the way, the Swiss franc is much stronger than the US dollar. For the past 35 years, it's completely outperformed the US dollar. For those out there, it's a little bit of a tip, you know, that you may want to look into. Yeah, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Stable coins are really, really taking off. And it's a massive use case. One really funny thing about like some of the developing countries, right, and the countries that are starting to take off is their main use case is not Bitcoin, it's Tether on the Tron blockchain because the fees are so low, right? And there's so much liquidity. So Nigeria, Turkey, Indonesia, I mean, South America, multiple countries, they're all using USDT already. So imagine, you know, if you're going to countries and you can swap from USDT to Swiss franc to whatever currency you're going to, then you're truly screwing over Western Union and all these scammers, right? Where you have people who need to make micro payments or transactions and they're getting charged hefty fees, right? And literally like sometimes taking up to 20, 30% of their monthly salary just to send money back home. That's a huge scam when you think about it, right?
Yeah.
So all these things will eventually be solved, you know, which as you said, it's a huge, huge use case.
I agree. And think about accessibility. You just need to have one of those things in your pocket as opposed to a bank account or a passport. Or there is so many places in Africa, for example, where they don't even have banks. It's not convenient. If you want to send money or receive money, well, how do you do it? Yeah. Well, with a phone in your pocket.
And they have lots of obviously mobile phones, smartphones are becoming more and more affordable. So
exactly. So you can then use it as a meter of exchange. So I think we have an exciting few years ahead. I'm super pumped about what's going to happen next, even though, like we were discussing, Bitcoin has been doing boring things. It's part of the cycle. I like to buy Bitcoin no matter what. I bought at 70. I will buy 100,000. I'll buy 500,000. I buy consistently because this is where my savings are. But there's going to be moments, depending also on your time frame, which is more convenient to potentially buy. I don't sell necessarily, but I'll probably use a portion of my maybe mainly altcoins to dump them at some point to then accumulate more Bitcoin. But I think if you are in for a long run, it doesn't actually matter. I think we'll still have a strong correction at some point. I'm expecting the next probably 12 months until October next year, and then we'll probably see maybe a correction or a quote bear market. I don't know if you agree also. Are you expecting those 4-year cycles to be?
Yeah, so the whole 4-year cycle thing is, I kind of break it down into seasons because we have 4 seasons as well. For all those watching out there, the way I see this cycle is, you know, winter is where you have to, you know, it's really, really bad, right?
It's cold.
It's very cold, you know, all the fruits and vegetables and trees and leaves are literally falling apart. But when you come from winter to spring, so in winter, what I usually tell people is that's where you need to plant the seeds, right? Then spring comes along and you need to water them, right? And then summer, all of a sudden you start harvesting. And then in fall, you start cooking and, you know, getting ready for that winter again. So the 4 seasons or the 4 years, I like to, you know, compare it with seasons so people really understand what I should do, that, right? Yeah. But I think it's very hard. Everyone is talking about 4-year cycles. I don't like that because I think that it's too complicated. It's too general. So for me to really time the market, I look at 2 components. I look at, as you said, the super cycle, or the when we're talking about the asymmetrical gains where euphoria starts kicking in. And that ultimate, you know, like double-digit growth overnight, if it sustains, I like to look at a period between 6 to 9 months, as you said, which may be October, by the way. October may be a very accurate call, right? So I like to look at a specific moment of summer rather than looking at such a wide time frame because it's too complicated to call. So the second part is I like to look at total market capitalization across all crypto assets. And as we know, and as you know, Maurizio, in the previous, you know, DeFi bubble altcoin cycle, we hit roughly $3 trillion of total market capitalization. So I would say, on a conservative scale, we'll probably double that, maybe $6 trillion of total market capitalization, and being very aggressive up to maybe $9 trillion market capitalization. So depending on understanding your risk appetite, which we talked about earlier, maybe you want to start exiting around the 5.5 trillion to 6 trillion. If you're more aggressive, you can maybe push and wait to 7, 8, hoping that you'll make more money. But once again, those two things to time the market, I think you need to zoom into the asymmetrical, the crazy euphoria stages, which can be anywhere between, let's say 6, maybe 5 to 9 months. And then you look at total market capitalization, which could be anywhere between 5.5 to $9 trillion.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, if you think about it, gold is 18 trillion. So if let's say we go to 9 trillion, with the entire crypto market cap, Bitcoin has 50%, let's call it.
Exactly.
Which means 4.5 trillion. Now we're about 1 trillion. It's like, yeah, it's very, very accurate. I like that.
You brought up a really important point, because if you guys out there want a third metric to time the market, it is the Bitcoin altcoin dominance.
Yep.
That is a very important metric, because when you see the money flow trickling down to lower cap assets, but starting to trickle back up. So let's say Bitcoin dominance goes down to 35%, right? Or let's say 40% or 38%. But then it starts going back to 50%. You already know that people are starting to to become a little more conservative. So that's also, by the way, that's a really important metric, Maurizio. I think those three, if you combine those three, that's already a really good indication.
Yeah, it's funny because in the past I've done, I've gone in places where I was expecting Bitcoin to go to $1 million. I had no clue, right? Because this is how it works. You get into, oh my God, Bitcoin is going to $1 million. And you just go all in. And then in a span of a week, it's gone from $20K to $3,000. And it's like, oh my God, I'm so done. But then I didn't sell, right? Because I've done a few cycles, and every cycle I'm learning something. And those scars that we are having on our bodies are allowing us to say, okay, well, it's experience, right? That's why every cycle we have seen people come in and say, oh, this time is different. I don't think it's different. I think it's always the same, but it rhymes. It's never exactly the same, but we've seen things in the market. And I like what you said. If you have multiple metrics, you can say, okay, well, maybe this indicator is signaling something, but the other two are not. So maybe I should not sell or use a portion of your portfolio to DCA out, because I think it's, some people I've spoken to on the pod, they don't want to touch their Bitcoin at all, and other people, they want to sell everything. Yeah. It's all subjective, right? I like to have my money into Bitcoin, but I have a percentage of my portfolio that I play with. Even on Bitcoin itself, every cycle I try to play the gamble machine and see, hey, maybe I can sell here. But I wouldn't advise anyone, no financial advice, to sell everything, because we don't know what's going to happen, right? Now that ETFs are involved and companies, and I mean, if you think about this for a second, now Bitcoin sits at 1 trillion, more or less. Yeah. Gold, 18 trillion. So it's a baby. This thing is a baby.
100%.
It's going to surprise everyone. I don't have a target per se. I think I like Michael Saylor says he's going higher, which I agree. On average, 50% a year. That's, for me, that's enough. I mean, I don't know, but based on the data I've seen so far, I'll say buckle up, because the most exciting part, and we have the election in November, if by any chance Trump is going to win, and by the way, even if Trump loses and Kamala wins, in the long run, Bitcoin doesn't give a that's what I think. Absolutely. Sorry, my French. We might see a small dump because of a correction, whatever, but Bitcoin does Bitcoin, whoever the president is. So in the long term, if you have 10, 12, 15 years time frame, I think we will look back at this conversation and the price of Bitcoin today at $63,000, and we'll probably think, oh man, it was so cheap. I wish I would have bought more. Because so far, in my experience, in 11 years in Bitcoin, it's been always the same damn thing, which is, I wish I would have bought more. But yeah, I guess time will tell.
I mean, at Token 24 in Singapore, a lot of the main VCs are saying that, once this cycle is over, they're out, right? And as you said, I think selling all your Bitcoin is really like hanging up the gloves. I think it's a loser mentality. You have to stay in the game, and you have to keep working in life, because if you don't get those scars, as you mentioned, which, by the way, no pain, no gain is maybe a lightly heard proverb, but it's even more important than that. I don't believe that you can achieve anything without pain in life, right? The struggle is such a important feeling and for everything you succeed in life. There's nothing that's done without, nothing that's achieved without a struggle. So for me as well, you know, as you said, for those who end up like selling all their Bitcoin and they're out, like let's say for the next 5 to 10 year horizon, I think they're completely nuts, man.
Like I'm selling something that goes up in value for something that goes down in value. What am I selling Bitcoin for? Everyone does whatever they want to do and no judgment here. Of course.
Absolutely.
Alex.
Thanks for having me, man.
Absolute pleasure. We should do it again. Guys, by the way, in the comments down below, I will link SwissBorg links and of course, this beautiful man profile. Make sure to check him out. And yeah, thanks again, man. Really appreciate it.
Grazie mille, amico mio.
There you go. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.